Hey YouTube, I couldn't sleep, so I'm gonna do a public service announcement and talk about more car audio stuff. Alright, so you've just put your 1000 watt bass system in, your 212s, 215s, and it's absolutely slamming. And even with your 4 aftermarket speakers in your doors and even a little amp on them, so your highs just don't keep up with that bass. What are you gonna do? Well, the really only real solution to your problem is to add more speakers into the car. More power, more speakers, preferably better speakers. I would recommend a set of components. Now, if you're a sound quality guy, one set of good components and a nice amp. That'll sound good. But if you play in hip hop with lots and lots of bass, you want your highs to keep up, there's not a 6.5 component set out there that's going to keep up with it. You gotta run multiple sets. Where the hell are you going to put them? In your doors? Well, your doors aren't made for it, so you got to do fiberglass work. Now, forgive me that I don't have pictures or written instructions, but I do have a couple things I'm working on now. A great website to go to learn how to fiberglass is fiberglassforums.com. A lot of people post their builds in there, guys who are much better with fiberglass than me, but I'm good enough with it to give you the basic overlay. Alright, first of all, you need a door panel. What I do is I don't take the door panels off my car. I go to the junkyard because if I mess up, then I still have a door panel. Door panels from the junkyard are cheap. I got both of mine for about 25 bucks. Depending on the vehicle you have, it might be a little more, but it's going to be reasonable. And you can work on your build and you still have door panels in your car. Because if you don't have your door panels in your car, then you're going to be rushing to finish it because you want them back and you're bound to make mistakes. Okay, so this is the door panel. It's for a 99 Ford Taurus. And when I first got it, it had some kind of little pocket thing here and then a little speaker grill. And I pulled that off so I could build the mold, which I will show you in a second. This is the mold right here. I'm picking it up. And this here is 2 sheets of fiberglass chop mat, and then it's cut to fit right into this little, see, it'll sink right in here, like this. Okay, so, and basically, you have to put masking tape, good blue masking tape, expensive stuff, all over this. Paint your resin on top of it, then lay about 2 layers of mat down and let it dry, and then you can cut it and eventually sand the edges to get your mold. Okay, that's your first step. That's probably the easiest step of fiberglassing, is to make your mold. Some builds you don't need to build mold like that, but for this one I do, because I don't want to try to blend the fiberglass into the vinyl of the door, because blending fiberglass and body filler to vinyl is pretty much impossible, because vinyl likes to breathe a little bit, and if you sand the Bondo or the body filler too much, it'll just start to peel off the vinyl and look really bad. The next step is to make your speaker mounts, okay? And I have gotten started on this with this piece of board here. Now what we have here is I'm going to do 3 6.5 mids and 2 tweeters, okay? To give you an idea of what it'll look like, it'll go on the mold like that, okay? And yes, it's going to fill up the entire door. I'll eventually have to cut into the door panel, but that's later on. I don't need to do that yet. Once you do that, I'll cut out that board, and I'll use little dowel rods to mount the wooden board onto this. And then I'll take fleece or some kind of flexible material. It can be a shirt material, but fleece from Walmart, very flexible, very inexpensive. I got a bunch of fleece for about $13. You stretch the fleece over the mold and over the wooden bracket you've made, and you'll have the general shape of what you're getting. That'll be the shape of your pod. Make sure to pay extra attention to around the speaker grills to make sure it's all smooth out. And then you coat that with a layer of resin and you let it dry. And your resin will typically take 2 hours to dry. If you're in a hurry, you can use more of the hardener, but the hardener is expensive. So if you use a lot, it'll dry quicker, but you'll have to go buy more. I suggest using what they say on the bottle and just being patient. Once you get that done, it'll be hard to the touch, but it won't be very strong, okay? What you need to do is buy fiberglass chop mat, and there's generally 2 different types of mat you're going to find at Home Depot. There's your I guess, strand mat, your cloth type mat, and your chop mat. Your cloth type mat is actually very smooth, but it's not nearly as strong as your chop mat. If you're doing something like I'm doing, say 3 layers of chop mat on the top is probably enough to give you, it'd be rigid enough at that point. Um, what you want to do now is buy a good sander. I know that there's cheap sanders for like 10 or 20 bucks. Just get yourself a good sander. And Orbital sanders are great. I use I forget what it's called. It's like a Black& Decker mouse, but it's actually bigger, so it's more powerful. Because when fiberglass dries, it is extremely hard. Okay. Once you get the layers of fiberglass mat over the mold you made with the fleece, you want to sand that down pretty good using probably 60 grit sandpaper. Some people use 32, but 60 will work fine. And during when you're putting the resin onto the chop mat, make sure you press out with your paintbrush that you use to apply it. Press out any air bubbles. Try to make that surface as smooth as possible, because the more smooth it is, the less time you spend sanding. And on this job, the most time you will spend is on sanding. Sanding, 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 sanding. All right. Use the 80 grit sandpaper to get your fiberglass as smooth as possible. There are bound to be slight imperfections in it, but get it as reasonably smooth as you can. What you're going to need to do then is buy some body filler. And most people call it Bondo. Bondo is simply a brand of body filler, and it's actually bottom of the barrel crap. I mean, Bondo is the cheapest body filler. I've used Bondo a few times. I'm done with Bondo, okay? For a few reasons. One, you get something called pinholes. You'll get these little holes in the body filler when it dries that you have to sand out and then reapply, and it just waste your time. The Bondo Ultimate is better, but the best stuff you can get from, say, AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts is I forget what it's called, but it comes in a big yellow container, and it's better. But the best stuff is from Evercoat. It's called Rage, or Rage Gold. That's I've never used it, but I've heard that it is the best stuff. You need to get it from a paint shop in your area, so hopefully, or you can order it. Apparently that body filler is a lot easier to sand. What you do is you use a little spreader and you get the Bondo, the body filler, over the fiberglass, and what that'll do is it'll really kind of fit into little crevices and imperfections in the fiberglass. When you apply your body filler, you mix it with cream hardener, and then you apply it. As the hardener dries, there's a stage where it's not completely hard yet, it's flaky. You need to take really rough, say 32 grit sandpaper, and sand the Bondo gently at that point, because if you don't, you're going to spend a lot more time sanding. But be careful, because if you sand too aggressively, you're going to cut the Bondo down too much, and you're going to have to go back over it later. Once the Bondo completely dries, take your sander, 120 grit paper, go over it. A lot of the really intricate shapes you have to do hand sanding with, and that's what makes your arm tired, going around the crevices. Now, there's a couple of choices you have. If you want to paint the product and primer it, that's what takes a lot of work, because you need to have that Bondo sanded perfectly. No imperfections, no nothing. If you're going to wrap your product in vinyl or carpet, especially carpet, you can leave minor imperfections, especially scratches or pinholes or even minor indentations if it's vinyl, because the vinyl will cover those up. I mean, I recommend sanding it to make it look really, really good, but you don't have to be quite as diligent as you would with paint. My pods I'm going to wrap in vinyl so it'll match the doors, and also save me the work from having to sand down to the paint and to sand in the prime and paint. Once you do that, you can wire up your speakers inside of the door, the door panel, and it'll be much louder. Make sure you have an amp that will power all your new components. Remember, I'm running 3 mids. Each mid will be getting 75 watts continuous apiece. The amp I have will actually do 150 watts 4 ways into 2 ohms. So I can actually wire my 4 ohm component sets in parallel and drop the ohm load. The amp is a Cadence amp from the Cadence Outlet store on their website. I think it's a TXA 300, but I'm not sure. You'll have to look it up if you want to see it, because I don't feel like providing links, because I've been up for like 20 hours. All right, well, that's a quick tutorial on how to do fiberglass for the car. It's basically make sure that you have a lot of rubber gloves, a lot of paintbrushes, a good dust mask. You should really get a good quality respirator, safety goggles for when you're sawing, and a good work area that's well ventilated, because this stuff stinks. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it if you take your time. This is not going to be done in 1 day, 2 days, or even 5 days. Dedicate 2, 3 weeks, even a month to the entire project, and you'll be happy you did.